Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. And of course, you good old boys in Canada, you know we love that Big C tribe. We love them up north, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free, in the home of the brave, on a beautiful October 23rd, 2018. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, it's a terrible day for me down here. My flight got canceled to Boston, so I can't even get to the World Series tonight. I mean, I was ready to hurt somebody at the airport. This is the reason why you can't fly out of these Mickey Mouse airports. And you need to be in a major metropolitan airport when you're trying to get somewhere. You got one flight a day that's going to get you somewhere, and they cancel the damn flight, Charlton.
I understand, Big C. Sometimes when you wear those fatigues, get on the plane, they find a way to blocking people. Might want to wear a suit and tie next time. Big C, I'm here in the beautiful city of downtown San Francisco, California. Last time we were here, ironically, was Super Bowl 50 here in the Bay Area, where they had it at Santa Clara, and the networks were all downtown on the Embarcadero, right across from the San Francisco Bay. What a gorgeous place. I love being downtown San Francisco. A lot of times we go throughout Northern California, but this really is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. In fact, one of the most beautiful cities in the universe when you think of San Francisco. Big C, I know you've been here many times, and I know you've been here because I've seen a lot of barbecue drop scenes, a lot of barbecue droppers around here, and the pigeons are all over on Big C. Your thoughts on why you take barbecue with you everywhere you go, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you got to be careful when you're eating everywhere. You can't eat everybody's food. Just because food looks good doesn't mean it's good for you. I've been to places where for the next couple of days, I had an intestinal fight going on.
Oh, really?
I want to make sure that when I go somewhere, that my stomach is used to what I'm accustomed to having in it.
I understand. I do want to say this segment sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. There's something about, something where you want to eat a nice meal. You want to eat some of the meal, or do you want to eat all of the meal? There's something about eating all of the meal that's so beautiful. And what I love about Big C Sports is we have, being here in the heart of the Bay Area, you think about what's here, Big C. And I know the World Series is starting tonight in Boston and Beantown. A lot of people looking forward to that. But just the fact in downtown San Francisco, there's so much construction going on. Would you believe a lot of that money comes from Hong Kong? They're not American banks. One of the tallest buildings here on the West Coast, some 90 stories. It looks like it should be in downtown Hong Kong. Most of San Francisco skyscrapers are about 60 stories. This is about 90 stories. And I think the Hong Kongs are letting the Americans know that we're coming, Big C. That makes any sense to you?
Well, I think our current administration said we're going to let all the money in this world come into this country, as long as it's not illegal.
Right.
But they can't trace that Hong Kong money, Charlton.
No, they can't.
So when you look at the people who make investments, come in and buy up real estate. They use that gentrification, as you always say, that redlining.
They gentrify,
But they condemn certain areas, Charlton, and they run people out economically because they raise the taxes. And people can't afford it any longer. And so all of a sudden, people come in and buy their way in the cities. Not that they do it properly, but they buy their way in the cities. And this happens. But, this is America. What can you expect? When we have our administration talking about, we have caravans of people coming into this country, and they're led by the Taliban.
That's what he says.
But he has credible information, but he can't prove it.
Well,
but he's knowledgeable, so you put this fear-mongering into his base, that you have tens of thousands of people going to rush the American border, and they're all criminals. Those little babies that they're carrying, they're criminals. Those grandparents are criminals and terrorists. And so when you have a base of people, Charlton, and you're talking about voter obstruction, that's voter obstruction, Charlton.
Yes, it is.
Because what you're doing is you're insinuating people who don't know what they're thinking, Charlton. They can't think for themselves. It's just like there was a robocall going out today. In the Florida gubernatorial race. Andrew Gillum, the first black running for governor of Florida. That they had this robocall going out using the N-word, saying that's what he is.
Wow.
and that he's a gorilla.
Wow.
And how he's going to offend all the people once he gets elected governor of Georgia. This is done by the Republican Party, Charlton.
That's a shame.
So the insinuary of what these people do to rile people up with lies and not tell the truth. It would be nice that in politics in America, just like in sports, is that you could tell the truth.
Yep.
Be honest about everything. But we're not a society that's built on honesty.
No, it's not. And I've got to tell you, ironically, I grew up in northern and central California all my life, Big C. And for one of the first times we talk about the wealth gap, in San Francisco, it's so hard for people to buy a house here. The average house here is about $2 million, and that's not for something spectacular. That's just to get your foot in the door, it seems. But I want to tell you what I've seen here. And I know there were times when the Fillmore was a neighborhood here in San Francisco. There's been so much gentrification in San Francisco. I rarely see people of color. It's almost I almost feel like I'm in a different country because it used to be very diverse. As you get into the heart of the financial district, people think it's diverse. Not really. There's a lot of things going on that you don't really notice when you don't go around it as much. A lot of people moved out into the suburbs, but when you go back into the financial districts where they're building these 60 and 90-story skyscrapers, there's not a lot of people of color anymore. And even in downtown San Francisco, they've been priced out, Big C. They either come from the Pacific Rim, or they're the Japanese, or they come here and they just have old money where they've grown up around here. And this is why we tell people it's so important to vote, especially down in the South where they're expecting to vote in Georgia. All of this stuff happens where you don't vote, and people that come in, they price you out, and it's just a matter of time. And I see it in one of the most beautiful cities here in San Francisco, downtown at the Hyatt Regency. It's a gorgeous view. You can oversee the bay. You can oversee so much, but there's a lot of private money. Do people, these athletes that we look at, when you see black athletes on TV, whether it's Steph Curry or Barry Bonds or Durant, or you see someone like a Jerry Rice, we think, hey, they're in the Bay Area. What a diverse place. I'm telling you, outside of the sports fields, Big C, there's just not as much as it used to be even some 20 years ago, Big C. Your thoughts?
Charlton, athletes 40 and 50 years ago used to be activists in America. They were involved in politics, involved in getting minorities out to vote. But it's not so much so these days, Charlton. When you see athletes or even coaches take a political stance, Charlton, as far as what they're looking at in their community, in their region, they tend to lose their jobs. It's not always about winning and losing, Charlton. It's about the stance that you have politically. Right there in the area where you are now, when you think about Mark Jackson's departure from the Golden State Warriors, it wasn't all about Charlton coaching and not fit. It was his political stance, his stance on society. His departure from the Warriors as much as anything else. When you look at Steve Kerr, he's meek and he's not crossing that line, Charlie. He doesn't go out there and present himself in that fashion. You look at the quarterback with the Raiders, Charlton, Derek Carr. His biggest divide with the team, Charlton, was him taking a stance. Okay, for social injustice. Because it was a black thing. He's this devout Christian and say, hey, we can't do that. We can't do things like that. I'm not with you guys. And when you look at the number of Raider players that have been disbanded because of the stance they took, people will say, well, he just changed the roster. No, a lot of it was based on the stance they took about the flag, Charlie.
I agree.
So that's a political divide and a racial divide, Charlie. And so when you have people do that, Mark Jackson's always been spoken about injustice. He was with New York, he was in Indianapolis. He's seen it, Charlton, throughout his career. And then as a coach being in that general area, Charlton, and taking a stance on things that he didn't like. He was very outspoken as a coach, as well as he is as an announcer. But he's been calmed down as an announcer. And so this is what the backlash is against athletes who take that political platform. You saw what they did to NBA players, Charlton. When they came out in unity, except the NBA players own the league. The owners don't have as much power. We saw what the NFL did to players, Charlton. They made a rule overnight. Now, you think about how long it takes to change rules in the NFL. They did that overnight. It didn't take anything to get it done. Next thing they know, the players said, we're going to do it anyway. And all of a sudden, now they said, how many players can we suspend and have a game?
Isn't that
Maybe
true?
Maybe we should call Las Vegas and get their input on this rule about suspending black players.
Well, I think about Bezos, who's Amazon, and how, $160 billion, Big C, and you think about Silicon Valley. Here in the heart of Silicon Valley, You can see how it's changing things. There's so much technology in San Francisco. But I love that this is a sports mecca of California. People might think, well, it's really L.A. No, it's San Francisco. And I'll tell you the reason why. It's close to the state capital, about 100 miles west of Sacramento. And you have Willie Brown used to be one of the most powerful figures in all of California, the great Willie Brown. And this is Willie Mays territory, Barry Bonds territory. You think about some great actors. Danny Glover's from San Francisco. Harry Everett lives out here in the Bay Area. When you think about the Curry family, Steph Curry, he's out here in the Bay Area. All of them, Durant, there's so many people. But I got to bring it back to something. When I was a little boy growing up, I remember you think about Willie Mays. When Willie Mays was growing up, they were still in segregation. So that a lot of the young kids got to see them. And one thing might cry for the young black athlete, why they got to talk about voter obstruction, because if we don't, then nobody will. I know a lot of them have been shut up about it. But if you don't talk about it, this same gentrification that I see going on in San Francisco, where there are hardly any people of color considered African American, they've been pushed out into Oakland and now further east into the East Bay, towns like Antioch and Brentwood and Oakley, and communities in the valley like Tracy and Fairfield. There used to be a lot down here in this part of town, but when you don't have $2 million to buy a home and you're not dealing with rent control, you can't go to these games that we want to talk about. I know we want to talk about the World Series, but just to see how it's so beautiful here, but it's not like it's almost like it's back in the 1930s, and I'm sure that people don't talk about that, but we're real talk, Big C. Does that make any sense to you?
Well, you know, we talk about the athletes, Charlton, but how many of these athletes have a platform to talk? I mean, they really don't get a chance to be on a program until a microphone is put in front of them.
Yeah.
And then most of these programs are tape delayed and gets edited.
Get it out.
And now all of a sudden, whatever that athlete says is controversial, the producer said, we're not going to put that on the program.
Yeah.
So unless that athlete has the time to talk about something directly after the game, Charlton, when he's being interviewed with a live mic, they really don't have a platform to speak at.
Yeah.
But the people that have the biggest platform, Charlton, are the entertainers out there.
Yeah.
They're the ones who control the media market when you look at it, whether it's the music industry or the video industry, Charlton.
Yeah.
Entertainers control that. And so they have to take the time to educate everybody.
Yeah.
And they control all the races, Charlton, mainstream, minorities.
Yep.
Everybody buys their music and listens to their music.
Yeah.
So when they put a political message in their music or a stream of political message, people listen to it.
Yeah.
They all have these websites, these Twitter accounts, and all these other things that they get millions of hits on a day, Charlton.
Yeah.
They control more than any athlete in America.
Yep.
So the onus is on the people who have their pulse on the mainstream. An athlete is just a part-time individual when you look at it as far as what he does for work.
Yes.
These entertainers do their work every day of the week.
They do it every day of the week.
So if they want to be impactful in society, Charlton, then they have to send the right message about voting. Get out there, send the message about the obstruction that's going on.
Yeah.
How the politics will impact their lives going on from here, Charlton. Not just send a song out there denigrating a part of our culture,
right,
or women and things like that. Denigrate the politicians who do you wrong.
Yep.
That's what you want to do. If they want to get a message out there, let's put it on the entertainment.
Yeah.
Hollywood, the music industry, Charlton.
Yeah.
Those are the people, the television industry. Those are the people who have the impulse on America every day.
Yep.
Not the athlete that we see once or twice a week.
That's a very good point. There's a gentleman I used to know. I used to follow him a lot in the Bay Area, Dennis Richmond. He worked for Channel 2 over in Oakland. And I remember how he was a staple here in the Bay Area. And there's a lot of other people that I work with that are still on TV here when I cut my teeth in broadcast in the Bay Area, from Bay TV to Sports Channel Pacific, now it's called Comcast, Bay Area, and the ESPN crews that came to Northern California. But I just wanted to say to all of the great sportscasters in the world, there's something that's great about this city of San Francisco, but it's also disheartening when you realize that it's not as diverse as it used to be, especially when it comes to men of color. And a lot of people came here to San Francisco to work in the shipyards to have a great chance to raise their families. With the great universities of Stanford and Berkeley, I've worked with both Stanford and Cal Berkeley athletic departments doing football and basketball games, and also Pac-10 track and field championships back in the day. So I'll never forget how there was really a lack of diversity then, but it's even more prevalent now. It's kind of hurts my heart, but it's just a fact. I know the national championship football game is out here next year in Santa Clara. But I just want to make this one more point before we touch on the World Series tonight. When you realize that downtown San Francisco was just about a couple of miles away from the old, I mean, they tore it down. Candlestick Park is gone. It was a beautiful place, home to 5 NFL championships, but it's gone now. And when you were around that Hunters Point area, you saw a lot of diversity at the 49er games. Now they're down in Santa Clara. You don't see as much. It's mostly moved over to Oakland. When you see the San Francisco Giants, it's kind of a mixture there, but it's mostly Caucasian that are buying the tickets. It's mostly, I'll tell you, the Pacific Rim is coming in buying up San Francisco, where they're going to even replace the white population in the next 20 years. If Trump wants to talk about gentrification, you're seeing the people with money that don't need a line of credit from Wells Fargo or Bank of America. The money comes from Hong Kong or chartered banking, and you can Google that if you don't know what I'm talking about. I just want to say, before we get into the World Series, San Francisco is great. Northern California is great. But you got to get out and see places. And there are a lot of times, as a young boy of color, all we get access to are the athletes. That's why Big C, it hurt my heart when even guys like LeBron James or Chris Paul or even Magic Johnson, they don't talk about voter obstruction. They're trying to sell Nike tennis shoes. It's a joke. I mean, where are all the... I just got to tell you this. Ray Taliaferro, someone that I cut my teeth listening to, one of the most brilliant broadcasters in the universe, Ray Taliaferro, used to work KGO News Talk 810. He was on at midnight. African American, did not hold his punches, very erudite. I learned as much listening to Ray Taliaferro about broadcast as anybody I've ever been around, because he spoke the truth. And he would always say, research it. We say, Google it. Because your thought on any great orator who give you the permission and the knowledge to be brilliant, and then to back it up by saying, research me, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, what you missed was what you said in the opening lines of what you said about this gentleman. Came on at midnight.
Midnight.
Not prime time.
Yep.
Not when the average person is awake, Charlton, who has a job.
That's true.
The average person is not going to be up at midnight listening to a program or watching a program, Charlton. Well, it's like I said about these athletes earlier, Charlton. They don't control the networks. They go out and speak all the time, but when you see them on television, you see an edited version of them. Every time you see LeBron on one of these sports shows or any other prominent minority athlete, it's an edited version.
Yeah.
You only see snippets of it. And so we don't know what they may have said to broadcast.
That's true.
The reporter right there, Charlton.
Yeah.
To tell people to get out and vote. They're not going to say that. They're not going to put it on their sports programs.
Yeah.
That's where they are nowadays. But, everybody has an opportunity to vote.
Yeah.
It doesn't take an athlete to tell you to get out and vote. If you're sitting there waiting on an athlete to tell you to go vote, then you missed the vote.
Right.
Because you should have that consciousness as a person. You should be salient enough to say, hey, this is my life. This is what affects me and my family.
Yes.
My culture. I need to do this as a civic duty, as a responsible citizen of the United States. I need to go vote. I need to read. I need to see what's on the ballot.
Yes.
What's going to affect me now, next year, and 5 years down the road.
Yes.
Not just sit here and say, well, I'm missing my show on TV. I got to hear the last of this song on the radio.
Right.
Those things are more important to people, Charlton, than to understand. The news is on 24 hours
all
a day now in the U.S.
Yeah.
The cycle.
Yeah.
Athletes are not on television 24 hours a day. But when you want to watch some reality show, some Real Housewives show, some Kardashians, some tattoo show, or some teenage baby mama show.
You've been stealing my Nielsen ratings box, Big C. You've been Googling what I watch, Big C.
but when people pay attention to that, instead of the 24-hour news cycle, yes, that gets convoluted.
Yep.
If you don't want the 24-hour news cycle, Charlton, there's a local and national news that comes on, and the local news tells you what's going on in your district.
Yes.
But it's directly affecting you. But when you feel that it's not important enough to pay attention to those things, Charlton, it doesn't make any difference how many athletic events that you watch or pay attention to.
Yes.
Because your life is not important to you in the future if you're not willing to look at the news and pay attention.
That's very true. And again, I love your point, Big C. I hope African American athletes and news people can just say get out the vote. It's not that hard a thing to do. Big C, with the Bay Area, the 49ers, the Raiders, you have the Giants, you have the A's, the Sharks, you have the San Jose Earthquakes, we have Cal and Stanford football, there's USF. This is a school that University of San Francisco, the Dons, they've won some national championships back in the day. Casey Jones actually went there, played for the Celtics, also coached the Celtics. So there are a lot of great people that came out of the Bay Area. But I want to swing.
Bill Russell also came out of that.
Bill Russell came out of the great.
Bill Cartwright came out of that.
Cartwright, yep, he's out of Northern California as well. So again, we love it all. Tell everybody to get out and vote. Don't just be a sycophant. I want to swing the bat to the East Coast tonight because for the first time since 19, I believe it was 19. I think it was 16. I think 1915. Boston beat Brooklyn. 1916. Boston beat Brooklyn in the World Series. Of course, the Dodgers were Brooklyn Dodgers back then. World War I began in 1914, July of 1914, ended November of 1918. In the middle of that, we had America's pastime, baseball. We have it starting again tonight over in Boston. And Big C, I know as a Southern guy, you follow sports all over the world, but I want to get your feeling. Out here in San Francisco, the Giants have won 3 World Series in the last 10 years. A lot of people still hold on to that. And the A's, the last time they won was way back in the 70s and the 80s when the A's won their things. But give me your feeling tonight. World Series obviously is a great time for Boston. It's a great time for LA. I want to get your feeling on how it feels down south watching this great hunt for Red October. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is a great race for history tonight. This is the first time in Major League Baseball that this has happened, Charlton. There are 2 managers that were former teammates with each other.
Wow.
That are managing these 2 teams. Cora in Boston, Roberts in Los Angeles. Not only that, Charlton, it goes another layer deeper. This is the first time in World Series history that there's 2 minority managers facing each other. Non-white managers. This is the first time in Major League history that there's 2 non-white managers managing a team in the World Series.
Wow.
So on every level, history is made starting tonight in Major League Baseball. You think about Alex Cora, the Hispanic, coaching Boston.
Yeah.
And here's Boston was the final team to integrate baseball with a minority player, Charlton.
Yeah.
In the 60s.
Wow.
Then we have Dave Roberts in Los Angeles, who's Hispanic, Asian, and African-American descent, Charlton. You talk about the complexity of the multicultural layers of Los Angeles.
Yes.
Dave Roberts covers it all, Charlton.
Yeah.
He can deal with all the communities out there.
Yeah.
But to have these 2 teams, these 2 great organizations, Charlton, going together, Chris Sales and the pitcher for the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Kershaw.
Yeah.
This is a battle of the big lefties tonight, Charlton. In a park that Sales is very accustomed to, Kershaw is going to have to get accustomed to it. Plus, he's going to have to bat tonight, Charlton.
Yes.
That's the difference. The American League has an advantage because they've had the opportunity. Well, matter of fact, Kershaw doesn't have to bat because they're playing in Boston tonight. Only in the National League parks does he have to bat.
Right, yeah.
But I give Boston the heads up on this game, Charlton, because you got 2 players that are potentially the MVPs of the American League that, they've held a hot hand.
Yes.
And when you think about the number of games that they won during the regular season, Charlton, they were 108 and 54.
Yeah.
5 teams that have already exceeded that number, Charlton, have won the World Series in the past, that have won at least 108 games.
Yes.
So I see Boston in line doing that. Los Angeles had a tremendous series against Milwaukee. But when it comes down to it, Charlton, and you got some home cooking to start the World Series, think about it. It's going to be a little chilly.
Clam chowder night.
Chilly out there in Boston tonight.
Yeah.
And those Southern California boys, Charlton, as used to that warm air,
yes,
might get a little nippy.
Well, you think about, you mentioned that there's 5 teams since 1961 have won at least 108 games and won the World Series. The 98 Yankees won 14 and 48, and the 61 Yankees were 109 and 53, followed by the 1970 Orioles. They were 108 wins and 50 losses. The 75 Reds, which might be considered maybe by a lot of people the best team ever, they were 108 and 54. The 86 Mets were 108 and 54. Go back to that big red machine. I know we're talking Boston and LA, but I want to just get your thoughts. That big red machine, it had a team that we really hadn't seen. We talked about the Bay Area. the Bash brothers with McGuire and Canseco, them good old boys that some people said they took their vegetables through a needle. I mean, I don't know what that means. See, I couldn't find a needle in the store, but just give me your thoughts. How would that Big Red crew compete against even this year's version of the Dodgers or this year's version of the Red Sox? Your thought, would they hit too much to be stopped, Bixie? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, a team that was loaded with all-stars and Hall of Famers, Charlton.
Yes.
You think about Perez, Concepcion, Rose, Johnny Bench.
Greg
yeah. Foster.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the second baseman, Joe Morgan. You know, Charlton, this team could have played against anybody in any era.
Yeah.
They were a lineup that was there from top to bottom.
Yes.
But they were team players, Charlton. That's something we don't get as much in this era. I mean, there's teams that stay together for a little while. But the Big Red Machine, Charlton, played for each other.
Yes.
And you know, when you look at Sparky Anderson as manager, Charlton.
Amazing.
Who held that team together.
Yes.
And kept them in the pennant race for several years.
Yeah.
This was a team that was built for success, Charlton. And they succeeded.
Yep, they did succeed. And when you think about that success, you talked about how great they were. I still want to pay homage to Dusty Baker. Dusty Baker, one of the best managers in baseball. Everywhere he goes, his team has gotten into a playoff position, but they never kept him on long term. He took the Giants to the World Series, took them to several playoff runs. He took the Cubs to the World Series. He took the Washington Nationals to the World Series. He took the Cincinnati Reds to the World Series. Dusty Baker's a Northern California good old boy. And just want to pay homage to him as we talk about some of the great players in baseball. I want to go and just pay homage to someone by the name of Tommy Lasorda. He is Dodger baseball. Ben Scully, one of the most inimitable broadcasters in the history of the universe. The big Ben Scully, Big C. For them, what does it mean for them to be around this day, to see the Dodgers do something they haven't done since 1988? I know on the West Coast, people are pumping the Lakers and LeBron, and they're starting to see that it's team ball, not LeBron ball, that wins. They can have all the fights to have distractions. All the posters don't mean a thing if you don't have a team unity. And I think we're seeing that play out with the Lakers. But the Dodgers, there's a lot of people that the Dodgers have made proud. They have a manager of color, when oftentimes the diversity is not as much in baseball as it is in NBA and NFL. Give me your thoughts on these old-timers, Big C. What it must mean to them that they're still around to see if the Dodgers can get another World Series, Big C. Your thoughts on being down this time?
Well, I think most of all it's the legacy of the organization, Charlton, has been a consistent winner.
Yeah.
You know, when you look around baseball, then there's organizations older than the Dodgers that don't consistently win.
Yeah.
That's the thing that you have, is that you always put in a legacy of stability. That's what's allowed longevity, is for these people to be in there, Charlton, over decades. You think of the length of term that Lasorda managed the team, at the time that Big Scully broadcasted for the team, Charlton, and many others. When you look around the baseball community, Charlton, the Dodgers' tentacles go out a long way.
Yeah.
You know, the past manager of the Angels across town, Mike Scioscia, was a catcher.
Yeah.
For them, you talked about Dusty Baker, who played for the Dodgers.
That's
Charlton.
right. That's right.
There's been many of players, Charlton, that have come to the organization that have gone out in baseball and succeeded.
Yep.
And so to have those names that you recognize because of their length of time with the organization, Charlton, is a tribute to the organization.
I think that's a very good plan. Big C, I also want to go back to bring up something that I think is very important as well. When we look at a player like Yasiel Puig, and you talked about Joe Morgan. You know, Joe Morgan, he's been a broadcaster. He used to live up here in the Bay Area also, Big C. In fact, I know a gentleman who actually knew Morgan back in the day. And I think he has one of the best bases of knowledge in the baseball universe, Joe Morgan. And I just love when he would call games.
But Joe Morgan lost his job, Charlton, because of his social stance.
Yep, sure
because
did.
He called out injustice in society for how he had been abused by some police officers and sued the city and lost his job. So when people want to understand why minority athletes take a stance and why minority athletes don't speak up on television, and especially minority broadcasters.
Yes.
Joe Morgan is a perfect example of that, Charlton. When you talk about the plight that has affected your life, then we don't want you to talk about that on our networks, Charlton.
Yep.
You have to go someplace else and get employment because those people that abuse you don't abuse us.
Right.
So we're going to believe the story that they told. It's just like yesterday on the news, Charlton. It was on the national broadcast, Charlton. And it happened over the weekend.
Yes.
I saw it. There was 2 young girls, Charlton, that were beat up by police officers.
Wow.
One down in Fort Lauderdale. She was 14 years old.
Wow.
They got her down on the ground, face down, and they're punching her in the ribs. She's 14 years old. Got the knee in the back, hole in the back of her shorts, which was sexual assault also, saying that they were trying to get her attention. You got your knees in her back, and you're punching her in the ribs, full blown, and you said you're trying to get her attention. There was another incident, Charlton, that occurred, I believe it was in Ohio.
Yes.
Where there were 2 officers holding a person down on the street, punching on this person. 2 more officers showed up, Charlton. One officer jumped in with both knees first and both hands and started pummeling. This is an individual on the street, and you got people videoing this saying, why are you beating up this person?
Wow.
They're down. They're not doing anything. This is what Joe Morgan went through with police officers.
Yeah.
He spoke about it at work, and when you say why broadcasters and athletes that are minority don't speak about voting and other things, the minute you take a political stance, Charlton, you're unemployed. That is the reason why we don't get minority broadcasters speaking about these things, Charlton, because the injustice that they live in socially in society, Charlton, they can't bring it to work with them. They have to accept it if they want to keep the job.
Well, that is a very salient point, and that's why podcast and streaming is over the top. It's not regulated by the FCC. You can speak the truth, and I would challenge anyone if you think that taking a stance doesn't work because you don't want to lose that income. I understand that. Quit the station, start your own podcast. They can't do it without you. Most of the shows now have a white host, and they have these erstwhile black athletes that come on and fill time. They don't cover it by themselves. Big C Sports is the only show, in fact, I would say maybe the only show in the universe that doesn't have a producer. We're non-scripted. We don't have several guests coming on to fill our time. We speak extemporaneously. We speak from the heart. And if that's not good enough, then so be it. Go get your own podcast show. They're only going to keep you around anyway.
Think about this. When you see players in the NBA being interviewed, how many white players have you seen in the NBA being interviewed? I mean, and that's not being racist.
It's a fact.
These are the programs. That's their program director. These are the people that are watching. How many white players have you seen interviewed for an NBA game this season?
Not many.
Even in the NFL, of the players that are interviewed, 90% of them, if not 85% of them, are black.
Yeah.
You might see a white quarterback interview, period.
Yep.
But the skill positions, you don't get white players interviewed for the most part.
Yeah.
So 85% of the NFL interviews are black players being interviewed, black players being talked about. That's the white media doing that, Charles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Baseball, when you look at that, it's an even keel in baseball, depending on the race level of the league.
Yeah.
But the hockey, you're going to get the white players interviewed in hockey. They really don't interview the black players.
Yeah.
So when you talk about programming and exposure, Charlton, people understand what makes them money.
Yeah.
In the NBA, you have to interview the black players to get the ratings on your station. In the NFL, you got to interview the black players to get the ratings on your station.
Yep.
Baseball, hockey, it's a little different, Charlton.
Yeah, that's the truth. That's the truth there, Big C. I would say also, if you can't get what you want, quit and start your own business. That's how most people make it anyway, Big C. And so no matter what people do, diversity is important, but you got to open your eyes. You got to get out and vote. There are a lot of times people are not voting for rent control. When they don't vote for rent control, that means your grandparents can't stay where they've been, Big C. And then if they do, then you have a thing that's called eminent domain, which will move them out to those skyscrapers. I want to say sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. For every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with a Big C Sports, whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, or your mom and pop soccer league. When you reach out to them, let them know Big C sent you. Big C, I want to jump over. I know we talk about baseball, and we'll go back and forth with that. I still think it's a mistake that the Dodgers are starting Kershaw tonight. He does better when he doesn't start. And I know people he's making more money than anybody. Yeah, but watch how he is when he starts in big games. He doesn't have the same closing and the winning percentage, Big C. When we look at football, it's almost easy to say who's number one. I look at Alabama, their idol. And then number 2 is Clemson versus Florida State. Any hope of a letdown for Clemson? I doubt it. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, Florida State has played well since the first couple of games of the season. They have a passing attack. They will challenge Clemson. This has been a rivalry game, Charlton, for the past 4 or 5 years down there in Death Valley or Tallahassee, wherever they get together.
Yeah.
This won't be an easy match like it was last week against North Carolina State for Clemson.
When you look at Notre Dame, number 3 versus Navy, they play Notre Dame pretty close, maybe because their uniforms look the same, and every now and then you might throw a pick because you think you throw it to your own team. LSU is idle. They're giving Orgeron a chance to rest that raspy voice. Maybe he can gargle. Big C, what elixir do you mix together for a raspy voice syndrome? Big C, your thoughts?
I think you got to put a little antiseptic in there, Charlton, some salt somewhere. That might help. But all the entertainers over the years have used honey, Charlton.
Oh yeah, I've heard that honey is good for that, and honey's good for a lot of things. Like, honey, would you do this? Honey, would you do that? It's also good. Number 5, Michigan versus Penn State. Them Wolverines and the Nittany Lions. Big C, which tastes better, Wolverine or Nittany Lion? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, we're talking about both wild game, man. And you got to trap do something to them. You can't walk up and get either one up with your hands.
Yeah.
But this is a game when you look at the Nittany Lions, Charlton, they had a tough time last week against Indiana.
Yes.
They lost 2 critical games this year. Michigan has to keep rolling, Charlton, if they want that showdown with Ohio State to mean something and a chance to get into the Big Ten title game in the National Championship Series, Charlton.
Speaking of in the big games, there's nothing much bigger than Texas football. High school football, Friday Night Lights. They have some great programs down there. South Lake Carroll, Odessa Permian. They have Allen, Texas. Them good old boys play good football. Even Aldine, Texas. But the Texas Longhorns versus Oklahoma State, the Cowboys. Big C, Texas and Oklahoma, you can't find a much better game than that. Oklahoma State, they can have a shootout also. This is a game for Texas. They got to be careful because I'm 40. I'm a man in this coaching. Big C, your thoughts?
Yeah, Mike Gundy's a little on the hot seat right down there in Stillwater right now, Charlton. So he really needs to come out and put on a good show against Texas.
Yeah.
And the Cowboys at any point can raise up because they have one of those bona fide passing attacks in college football.
Yeah.
And when you're not accustomed to a team throwing the ball on you, Charlton, you don't need a couple big plays in a game, and all of a sudden your season's gone awry.
That's a very good point, Big C. Georgia, number 7, at number 9, Florida. They'll knock each other out. This is a game where you just love the pageantry, these 2 great programs. They both competed for a national championship. They've had great players. I still think the greatest player that ever played at Georgia, and some people might say that it was Herschel Walker. And maybe it was Herschel Walker. In fact, Big C, I will say it is Herschel Walker, Big C, but he's not playing in this game. And maybe the greatest player that ever played at Florida, I wouldn't know who to call because they've had so many of them. I think Chris Leak was great. I know they look at the quarterback situation, that they've had so many wins over the years. But I want to get your thoughts on what's the edge for this game. They're both very physical. They both can't afford a loss. They've already had one. Who has the advantage in this game, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, when you talk about the greatest players of Florida, Charlton, you can look at Steve Spurrier, who won a Heisman Trophy.
Yep.
You can look at Tim Tebow, who won a Heisman Trophy. Danny Werfel won a Heisman Trophy down there. Emmitt Smith, the NFL's all-time leading rusher.
Yep.
It's really deep as far as that. But, when you look at this Florida and Georgia game, Charlton, this is the world's largest cocktail party.
Yeah.
Largest outdoor cocktail. They moved this game down to Jacksonville, Charlton.
Yeah.
Because they need some warmth.
Yeah.
to melt the ice in the cocktail.
I understand.
This is one of those games, Charlton, that's going to be a game that no one really thought at the beginning of the year would matter. People thought that Georgia, on the national scale, would just walk past Florida. They didn't expect these teams would have a similar record, Charlton.
Yeah.
And the loser of this game will be eliminated from the college football playoffs opportunity.
Wow.
So Georgia was in that game last year, Charlton, with 1 loss. But they can't afford another loss if they expect to make it. And I look at Florida being a little hotter right now than what Georgia is because they struggled desperately against LSU, a team that Florida beat.
That's a very good point, Big C. Central Florida, talk about a team that gets no love. They're like Rodney Dangerfield. I get no respect. Let me tell you, I get no respect around here. Central Florida, they don't have Rodney Dangerfield in the back pocket, but they do have him in the voting booth because a lot of people are not giving them respect. And people say, you got to earn it. Big C, they beat Auburn last year. People were begging Auburn to stay in the top 10 because they would lose, and they wouldn't drop them too far. But Central Florida hasn't lost since they beat Auburn, and they still can't get past 10, Big C. Your thoughts?
Mackenzie Milton is that hidden gem in college football, Charlton. This is a quarterback that has 19 consecutive victories.
Yeah.
His team has been rolling. Everybody said, because of Scott Frost. Scott Frost just had his first win in Nebraska. last week, 7 weeks into the season. Central Florida's 19 consecutive, looking for 20 this week. Under Josh Heupel, their new coach, Charlton. Regardless of how many people lose in front of Central Florida, Charlton, the pollsters won't make them higher than 7 in the national poll, Charlton. They'll never get that respect that they deserve. The game is played on the field, not in a boardroom saying because this team stadium is this size, this is where they're ranked.
Very good point, especially a team from Florida to get looked over. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I can see if they were from Kansas. So if Clemson and Alabama remain unbeaten, it'll be the first time, Big C, that you have 2 elite college passing teams meeting in the National Championship Series. Usually have a strong running team, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, both of these teams have changed how they play football, Charlton. They had been power football teams for decades. But you think about it, this could be a four-peat of these two teams getting together in the national championship if they both get to that level. And here's the teams that have turned their offenses over, Charlton, to big plays. They both have down-the-field quarterbacks, Charlton, in Tua and Kelly. I'm trying to think of the kid in Clemson. The freshman. Both of these players, Charlton, have elevated their team's offense.
They have.
They both have great defenses. Both of these programs have been noted for it. But now when you got quarterbacks that can go out and get you 300 yards a game passing,
easily,
everything has changed on the landscape of college football.
Big C, coming into this year's Heisman Trophy, we were talking about Bryce Love out of Stanford. We were talking about the quarterback up at Penn State. Even people were talking about Browning up at Washington. But that's changed, and maybe even some people had Jalen Hurts in the mind, even though before the college national championship game, he was considered maybe a guy that was a Heisman Trophy candidate because they won so much. Think about right now, the Heisman watch continues. Tua at Alabama has a stronghold. He's number 1 with a total of 27 touchdowns, no interceptions. Big C, he rarely plays in the fourth quarter. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he has just dominated the landscape of college football. I was skeptical of the young man the first couple of games of the season, but what he does is come out and do it every game. You think about it. He has not thrown one interception this year, Charlton. That's phenomenal for a guy who's averaging 300 yards a game passing and hasn't made it to the fourth quarter.
What's that guy that he went pro? His name is Baker Mayfield. Well, they're not mentioning him much at Oklahoma because Murray's coming and throwing 30 touchdowns, only 3 picks, and no one in this world can, in fact, no one in the universe can tell me that he's not a better athlete than Mayfield. But you watch what happens when he gets to the point, if he gets to that senior or even junior year, where he's NFL ready, they're going to say, man, he'd make a great running back, or he'd make a great defensive back. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they wouldn't even draft him high because he's under contract with the Oakland A's. Even though he still wants to play football, he's proven that he has the arm to spread the ball all over the field. When you think about Oklahoma, this is a team, Charlton, that has scored over 30 points in their last 34 games. Even in the game that they lost to Texas, Charlton, and he put 45 points up on the scoreboard, he didn't play defense. And so he hasn't been outplayed in any game this year, Charlton, that he's quarterback. And you think about last year, he started one game when Baker Mayfield got a suspension. He scored a 75-yard touchdown on the first play.
He's amazing.
Touched the ball.
He
didn't play any more in that game. They put Baker Mayfield back in.
Sounds like Terry Bradshaw, and who was the gentleman that played for the Steelers? Joe Gilliam had him. I think he won 11 games in a row, and by the time they got to the playoffs, they had to put Bradshaw back in there because they wanted Bradshaw to be the one to have a chance to play for the Super Bowl. When I think of Ohio State, I know they took a loss. Haskins he's going to have to lick his wounds from that loss because he's also someone that you've been very high on throughout the year, Big C. I think he's a great quarterback. I think Dwayne Haskins, he's very composed, a great speaker, a great representative for Ohio State. But you think about it, he's coming in maybe 31 touchdowns. He does have 5 interceptions on the season. But this Ohio State team, they're no longer Woody Hayes teams 4 yards in a cloud of AstroTurf dirt. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you think about a quarterback at Ohio State, Charlton, throwing 31 touchdowns 7 games into the season. Still has 4 games to go, so he can easily reach that 40 touchdown mark, Charlton, at Ohio State. As we've talked about, it's been the decline of this team since the return of Urban Meyer as coach. You'll start seeing shows on the other programs talking about Urban Meyer and what's wrong with the Ohio State program. All they got to do is look at the guy they're talking to when they say that. But Dwayne Haskins, as far as pro-rated quarterbacks, Charlton, he's the best pro-rated quarterback in college football right now.
I agree. I agree with you very much. So I want to go down south a little bit with you, Big C. The top current players in the NFL from the MEAC, none of them were first round draft picks. And I know you followed a lot of players from over the years that they're top players in the NFL, but they were not the sexy pick for the NFL until they got the chance to earn it. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at the players from the traditional black universities that don't get drafted in the high rounds of the NFL draft, because the NFL has understood, Charlton, that they can get this labor cheaper by waiting to later rounds, drafting these players from these traditional black colleges, Charlton, pay them a tenth, an eighth of what they pay their kids from the white universities, Charlton, that they're going to beat out. And when you think about the top 5 players, Charlton, from the traditional black colleges in the NFL this season, Charlton, you look at Antoine Bethea.
Amazing.
He's a defensive back with the Cardinals. You know, he's been an all-pro defensive back with them, Charlton. You look at Javon Hargrave. He's a nose tackle out of South Carolina with the Steelers.
Yes.
You come out of a Division II school, Charlton, and you step into the NFL and you're starting. But you're not a high-round draft pick. You're a low-to-middle round draft pick. When you look at running back, Trey Collins. Coins, rather. You know, running back out of North Carolina, A&T with the Bears. Here's a good Tariq Coins, Charlton, is just been dominant, lightning in the bottles in Bears offense for the last years. Everybody's talked about Trubisky. He's getting paid the big money. Tariq Coins, Charlton, is getting nothing, but he's a star in that offense, Charlton.
That offense, I think you're right.
Brian Smith, North Carolina A&T, Charlton, defensive back. An impactful player, Charlton, in the NFL. But do we hear about him on draft day, Charlton?
Nope.
Your buddy Mel Kiper and Roger Shea?
No, they're not my buddies.
They don't talk about him.
No.
Not at all, Charlton. So these are the situations that you get with these minority players. Because they're overlooked in the draft for financial reasons, Charlton. But when it comes down to playing, they play everybody. And when they make these all-rookie teams, Charlton, they get a little bonus on their contract. But back in the day, in the 60s, when the NFL was put together, Charlton, on drafting players out of these black universities, mainly the AFL, where those players were trailblazers, and they said, we're going to go out and get the best athlete. We're not worried about the school that they're from. We're going to go out and get the best athlete. Look how many Hall of Famers are in the NFL Hall of Fame, Charlton, in Canton, that came from those traditional black colleges that were first and second round draft picks that they don't get today.
Well, that's a good point. Think about quarterbacks in the NFL that struggled in Week 7 and cost their team victories. Josh Rosen for the Cardinals, Sam Darnold for the Jets, C.J. Beathard, 49ers, Derek Anderson for the Bills. All of these players come with a lot of hype, but they don't have the success that a lot of those players from the MEAC had, Big C. But if you don't Google it, you wouldn't know that, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you think about that. These are players that were drafted higher in the draft than those black kids were, Charlton. And they keep their job without even producing. You know, Josh Rosen was highly touted coming out of UCLA. He never won a Pac-12 championship. C.J. Beathard came out of Iowa. His grandfather, Bobby Beathard, ran the Washington Redskins forever. So he had a path to the NFL just out of loyalty and nepotism. Sam Darnold, you have talked many times that he should stay in college another year. Everybody says he can't miss. He's Hall of Fame material. He completed 41% of his passes in the last game, Charlton.
Wow.
And so that's not NFL standard. You complete 41% of your passes. Tyrod Taylor never completed that little pass, Charlton, or any other black quarterback in the NFL. They lost their job. And Derek Anderson, that was an abomination to the NFL, saying that this is the best we can go out there and find, a guy that hasn't played in 7 years. Bring him in, put him in front of the guy that's a starter who loves to throw interceptions. And we're going to start him and can't get a touchdown. Matter of fact, he's going to start again this week. This lets you know how racially divided that the NFL is. Regardless of your stance and your liking or disliking of Colin Kaepernick, you as the viewing public accept lies. That this guy can't play in the NFL. That he was washed up. Everybody knows that that's a racial move to keep Colin Kaepernick out of the NFL.
I agree.
The NFL threw out $75 million, said we're going to go out for social reform, community improvements, and all that. What is $75 million to the NFL, Charlton? They gave your cousin $84 million. They gave him guaranteed $84 million.
Yeah.
So they say that Kirk Cousins is worth more than community and minority reform in our communities in America that have NFL teams.
Wow.
That's how little $75 million is that the owners gave out. And I can see why Eric Reed was so upset with Jenkins.
Yep.
You know, before the kickoff. And I'm glad that Carolina won because that taste was so sweet going back home for him. Because he said that Jenkins had sold out.
Yeah.
Jenkins wanted to further his cause about community improvement. And he sold out for the community improvement versus social reform.
Yeah.
Community improvement is good. Social reform is better.
Yep.
That's like Charlton having a filet mignon versus ground round.
Yeah. Well, Big C, I feel bad. I had some ground round in the freezer. I think I'm going to toss it out and get some of that filet, Big C. That's funny. And just for people that know about all these millions, you know, tonight's Mega Millions is $1 billion, and I have the winning numbers. I went to this psychic today. She gave me the winning numbers. So I'm going to have, maybe I can buy me some what you said, filet mignon, Big C? I get rid of that brown round, Big C. Big C Sports got the winning numbers on that. I do want to tell you something, too. Being in the Bay Area, as we love being in the Bay Area, doing our shows, and just there's so much about the vibe of the Bay Area, even though San Francisco's been so it's like doing the locomotion. Come on, baby, do the locomotion. You ever hear that song? Well, there's so much commotion going on in the Bay Area. All of it's good. I mean, there's so much. People are happy. People are out at restaurants. And I really appreciate it, Big C. It means a lot. But I want to just say, being able to look at this new Chase Center and seeing where all that money's going into it, it's a beautiful place. It's going to have yachts around it. It's going to be about maybe a mile away from AT&T Park. There's so much that's going to be built up around that area. People are really going to love coming to San Francisco if they can afford it. But I want to go back to something that you talked about that is important. With the Oakland Raiders trading Amari Cooper to the Dallas Cowboys for another #1 draft pick next year, how will this trade impact both teams? I'll tell you how. These guys are McKenzie guys. McKenzie's out next. He may not be back with the Raiders next year. John Gruden's getting rid of everybody because Davis is dumb enough to let him do it. It's one thing you invite people into your house and they take off their shoes. You ever meet someone so arrogant? Not only do they not take off their shoes, they put their shoes on your sofa, that suede sofa you just bought, and they act like they don't know they're doing anything wrong. Gruden needs to be told you can't do this anymore, but they're going to let him run the house. It doesn't make any sense when his father fired him for the very same reasons. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I saw Kellyanne Conway do that at the White House.
The locomotion? Oh, the sofa? Oh, the locomotion or the shoes on the sofa?
Yeah, he had her shoes up on the sofa at the White House on TV.
Okay.
So I guess she must be, knowing John Gruden very well.
I understand, Big C.
When you look at this trade, Charlton.
Yes.
Amari Cooper had fallen out of graces there, and everybody says now he's going to go to Dallas and be a #1 receiver.
Yeah.
Well, he only ranked number 66 amongst the receivers in the NFL this year, Charlton, in catches.
Wow.
So that makes him a #2 receiver wherever he goes.
Yep.
And, he's had a case of the dropsies. But it's even more so about what you said about McKenzie.
Yeah.
This is an assault on McKenzie that he will not be with the Raiders next year.
He's being gentrified. Go ahead, Z. Go ahead.
The next to go is Derek Carr. He's going to be out of there because he's a McKenzie guy.
Yep.
And if you can stockpile these #1 draft picks after #1 draft picks, then that's what you're going to do. I see Derek Carr, Charlton, either going to the New York Giants or the Jacksonville Jaguars for a #1 draft pick. Now he's going to be stockpiled with 4 #1 draft picks.
Yeah.
You know what the problem is with that, Charlton?
What's that?
John Gruden has to do the draft.
Yep.
So
yeah.
If he can't evaluate talent that he already has there, that a professional player, how are you going to go out and evaluate college players, Charlton, when they're not even playing for you and they're only playing in some college games somewhere across the country?
Yeah.
You still have to rely on scouts in what they're saying.
Yeah.
But it just proves to the organization and to professional football that he can't evaluate talent, that he fooled people on television for years.
Yeah.
That he was sitting there telling people stories, and they were believing it.
Yep.
Now, he's told everybody in America that he's a great chef.
Yeah.
And they coming to realize he was just a fry cook at McDonald's. He was the guy cooking the French fries.
Yeah.
And that's fail proof.
Hey, hold on, Big Z.
You drop them in the fryer, hit the timer, the button goes off,
yep.
Come out that country. It's not like that in an NFL game, Chelsea.
Yep.
You have to coach.
Yeah.
You have to be knowledgeable of what your opponent is doing. You have to be able to put talent together.
Yep.
So sending off Amari Cooper, Dallas was going to have to draft a receiver #1 anyway next year.
Yeah.
He's closer to home in the South, Charlton. He might be a little more comfortable. And you think about it. He came out of college early.
Yeah.
You realize he's less than a year older than the Falcons' #1 pick out of Alabama.
Wow.
This year.
Wow.
Ridley.
Yeah.
So you think about the years that he has left that he can grow up with Dak Prescott, Charlton.
Yep.
And Ezekiel Elliott. You think about when the Cowboys were good before, Charlton.
Yeah.
They always had a trifecta. They had Troy Aikman, they had Emmitt Smith, they had Michael Irvin.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
They had Roger Staubach, they had Drew Pearson, they had Tony Dorsett.
Yep.
So when they were dominant teams getting to the Super Bowl, Charlton, they had those trifectas. Now you have Dak Prescott, and if Amari Cooper can make him better, you know what you have in Ezekiel Elliott?
Yep.
You have a chance to go forward.
Big C, the last 5 minutes, New York Giants fall into obscurity last night, 23-20 loss to Atlanta. Manning had his best game of the season, 27-38, 399 yards. He couldn't get one more yard and one touchdown. Matt Ryan was right behind him in a shootout game down there. You don't want to say shootout when they got a bird outside of Mercedes-Benz. You know them Southern boys, they hear shootout, they all bring their guns. I remember I was on an airplane one time, and I was flying out of San Francisco. I flew into Montana through Salt Lake City. I think it was a Delta flight. And Delta, everybody had shotguns on planes. And I heard Sam Jackson saying, "I'm tired of all these blankety blank blank on the blankety blank planes." That's the first time I heard the Sam Jackson line. I didn't know you could put shotguns on planes, but they were doing it. That was a shootout last night down in Atlanta. 31-39, 379 yards and a touchdown. Shepard 5 runs, 167 yards. Beckham was 8 for 143, and Jones was 9 for 104. That was a great game. But even with that, Manning still lost. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, what did the Giants draft in the first round?
Running back.
Running back.
Yep.
Saquon Barkley, guy with speed, athleticism, powerful legs, Charlton. Great vertical leap that we've seen already this year.
Yeah.
Eli Manning twice down at the goal line from the 1 yard line, Charlton, tried to sneak the ball into the end zone. You think about that. Here's a guy that doesn't want to get hit.
Right.
Standing in the pocket. What makes you think that he's going to quarterback sneak and want to get hit?
Yeah.
And do it on successive plays.
Yeah.
So when people talk about the decline of Eli Manning, even if that play was sent in from the sideline, Charlton,
yes,
Eli, all he should have said, Saquon, I'm giving it to you over the top.
Yep.
That's a quarterback
yep.
who has the command of the game, Charlton.
Yes.
You're going to give it to your best guy at the goal line.
Yep.
Not you, a quarterback that could never run to start with.
Yes.
And is scared to get hit.
Yep.
But that showed me the decline of the Eli Manning even more. Is that you waste a 400-yard performance, Charlton.
Yeah.
Because you can't get a grasp of the game.
That makes
sense. You got
sense.
a guy that you drafted in the 3rd round to do that, to score from the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
You got first and goal. You hand the ball to him how many, Charlton?
Yeah.
1.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4 times.
Yep.
If you don't get in, you don't get in.
Right. Right.
But Eli Manning wasted 2 downs trying to sneak the ball, Charlton, and he failed his team. I mean, he's going to retire at the end of this season. They're not going to trade him. They're not going to bench him.
Yeah.
They're just going to give him his farewell tour. But at the haste of the rest of the Giants, they're going to lose their season because the Mara family, who kept the wife beater George Brown
yep.
hidden,
yeah.
is so loyal to Eli Manning,
yeah.
who lucked up and won 2 Super Bowls with this team and for this organization, Charlton.
Yeah.
To say, hey, we owe it to him. And we will ride Odell Beckham the rest of the year because it's his fault.
Yep. I think that's a very good statement, Big C. So we know all fair and love and war. In about the next 2 minutes, I want to, and everybody has their own opinion. I just love San Francisco. There's a vibe to it. I mean, people are singing, come on, baby, do the locomotion. I mean, you got people, there's a 10-man, scared the heck out of me. I'm walking thinking I'm going to get me a little Starbucks, Big C, and this guy jumps out in front of me. He was all 10, like he came out of Star Trek or something. But you know, people put money in his pocket. I said, well, I grew up when you scare people, you get punched, Big C, but things are a little bit different in San Francisco. Even in Star Trek, Starfleet Command was by the Golden Gate Bridge, and people here act like that's real, Big C. I just love this city. Give me Big C's top 10 power rankings. Everybody has their own choice. Big C, you're usually right. Who are your top 10 NFL teams at this point?
Well, Charlton, as we look at this point of the season, you know, number one, the Rams stay undefeated. You know, you're looking at the Patriots.
Yeah.
They've proven to themselves and the NFL, Charlton, that they're a team to be reckoned with.
Yep.
I got the Chiefs at number 3, Charlton. Patrick Mahomes right now is the NFL's MVP. He is just guns a-blazing every time he walks out at Arrowhead or anywhere on the road, Charlton.
Yeah.
The Saints at number 4. Drew Brees just gets it done. It's not sexy. He's not sexy. All the Saints do is win behind him.
Yep.
The Chargers. You know, you look at the Chargers, Charlton. This is a team that is playing 16 road games this season. 16 road games, and they're 5-2.
Yeah.
And right now they're on fire. You know, you think about this time last year, they had lost 4 games already.
Yeah.
They had one of the most exciting offenses in the AFL.
Yeah.
The Panthers proved that they belong, Charlton, at number 6 with their victory last week over the Eagles, coming from behind with 21 fourth-quarter points.
Great game.
The Washington Redskins and the ageless Adrian Peterson are coming in at number 8. Alex Smith is getting the job done, make that number 7. Number 8 is your cousin in the Minnesota Vikings.
Yes.
They have Adam Thielen, who is just uncanny at wide receiver. 7 consecutive games, Charlton, with over 100 yards, leading all receivers in the NFL.
Yeah.
I got the Ravens at number 9 just because of that defense they have. They have an inconsistent Joe Flacco, but that defense shows up every game, Charlton. At number 10, we got the Steelers squeaking out a win last week, Charlton.
Yes.
But this is a team that once they get rolling, they're going to be hard to beat in their division. That's Big C's top 10 in the NFL.
Well, we love Big C's top 10 in the NFL. In fact, we love Big C's top 10 everything. I really want to try Big C's top 10 barbecue sauce, them good old boys down south that you won't tell people what the sauce ingredient is, but I know a lot of people go to sleep but they eat it, Big C, because it's that good. And I tell you, there's so much that I'm grateful for. For this sports program that we have, we're not sycophant sportscasters. We love what we do. I love inviting everyone to Google everything we say and everything everybody else says. I love the fact that there's so much to do here in Northern California, the Bay Area. But I want to just close out your thoughts on the Boston Red Sox and the LA Dodgers playing the World Series in Boston tonight. A lot of people are really excited about this series coming up on the West Coast. A lot of people down south are pulling for the Dodgers. In San Francisco, they don't like the Dodgers. Everybody likes the Giants here. But just give me your feeling in the last 30 seconds what we're going to see in tonight's game. I know we're not psychics, Big C, but give me your feeling and what you feel, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, I look at the big bats of the Red Sox at home. You look at how well they performed at Fenway Park. And they're in an environment that's comfortable for them. Like I said, it's going to be a little difficult for the Dodgers because the air is going to be a little damp, a little cooler than what they're accustomed to on the West Coast. And the ball doesn't always carry as well, where it will in that warmer climate on the West Coast.
Yeah.
They have some bats that have performed. You know, Puig has performed this time of the year, Charlton. Turner has been phenomenal.
Yeah.
Machado really has to prove that, the trade with the Dodgers was the right trade when they brought him in, and he needs to perform and not have any antics in this series, Charlton.
Yeah.
But with the Red Sox having 2 MVP caliber performers, Charlton, and Chris Sale's pitching in this game 1, I like the Red Sox chances tonight.
Well, no matter who wins, it's all fair and love and war. And when you're feeling a little bit down or even when you're happy, come on, baby, and do the locomotion. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I'm telling you, I'm still really ticked off about my flight cancellation. And I hope that trucker who's preaching my seat tonight at the World Series in Boston, somebody spills a beer down his back and he gets a little bit cold. All right? That's what I'm looking forward to in the world of sports.
Well, Big C, we know it's all fair in love and war. We hope that you get your seat next time in the Boston. Every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide. Follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south, as we always tell you. There's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.